What the hell just happened? This might be the craziest episode of Danmachi I think I've ever seen. Jeez, man. That was violent. I was not expecting this. This thing looks like the freaking alien. Like, this is insane. I don't understand how they're getting out of here. Because if you guys didn't realize that next week's the last episode for this season. They're splitting this season into 2 cores. With 11 episodes in one, 11 in another. So next week's the last one for this season. And I don't get how they're going to get away from this. I really don't. I can't even fathom how they would get away from this thing. Like, this is insane. Let's just get straight into it and talk about Danmachi Season 4, Episode 10, because fuck. So our episode begins immediately where our last one left off, with everyone reacting to this thing's appearance, its cry. And Ryu is shook beyond belief by this. She is trembling, demanding that Belle gets the hell out of there right now. And we even transition over to everyone else that's in the dungeon. Bora's group doesn't understand what it is. They want to get the hell out of here. Even Team Hesty is like, what is that sound? It sounds like the dungeon is screaming in anguish right now. Even Aisha doesn't know what it is. She's never heard this before. As Cassandra drops to her knees in complete and utter despair because she knows this is it. This is the moment right here that she's been dreading. It's finally upon them. As we slowly see this thing busting out of the wall, claws first. And when I say this thing looks like the alien, I'm not joking. It looks shockingly like the alien. It is terrifying looking, to be honest. It really is. A true monstrosity, to say the least. Ornos literally senses this thing has spawned, and he is shocked. He's shook and felt like, wait a minute, what's going on, Ornos? What the hell is going on here? As he says, that thing has spawned again. A disaster has just been reborn. Now, this next scene right here is like straight out of a horror movie. I was shocked that this show did something like this. It was insane. I was literally clutching my head like, is this actually happening? Where this thing comes out and just absolutely butchers these adventurers in here. It's insane. It's so violent. I was shocked it was coming from this show. As they're all running for their lives. And we literally see the shot of them all running. And this thing just picking them off one at a time. Viciously. It's pretty wild. And it's here we transition back to Belle and Ryu as Belle starts demanding answers from Jura as they just hear the screams of dying adventurers all in the background. And he just laughs at Belle, saying, what, seeing Leon act this way hasn't tipped you off, Belle Cornell? I've summoned a monster, the same monster that butchered the Astria Familia all those years ago. As he explains that the members of the Astria Familia 5 years ago were constantly fighting against us of the Rudra Familia, thinking they were some heroes of justice, but to us they were just pests that were always in our way. So we set a trap to get rid of all of them. And it's here we get a flashback actually to Season 1, where Belle meets Ryu on the 18th floor, and she's putting flowers on her fallen familia's graves. And we finally realize exactly what took them out. And it's terrifying. As Belle finally realizes that this guy is responsible for the death of her familia. And I'm just sitting here like, well, no shit, Belle. He's responsible. What do you think this has been for? We did the same thing as we did before. We stocked up on blaze rocks, we exploded the dungeon, and we tried to trap him in here. Except the members of the Astria Familia just wouldn't die. They kept surviving like cockroaches. But then something happened that no one could have predicted. The dungeon gave birth to an abomination. A totally insane monster that no one has seen or even heard of before. And it's here we have Oranos start explaining the situation as this should never happen. Usually, adventurers destroying the dungeon is inconsequential. It should only prompt the dungeon to begin restoring itself back to normal. But if someone was able to inflict a certain amount of damage to the dungeon, or rather, someone made it a point to inflict an overwhelming amount of damage, the dungeon would prioritize eliminating the threat to it over its survival. Excessive damage triggers its self-preservation instincts. The dungeon suffers so much damage and misery that even my prayers cannot reach it. And then he says, what happened 5 years ago will happen again. As Jura continues that 5 years ago, all my companions were killed by this creature. But so were all those stupid bitches from the Astria Familia. And then he explains that I spent the past 5 years studying it. Even those morons from Evilist didn't know I was doing it because I did it on my own. What triggered the dungeon to spawn it, and what I would need to make the abomination appear again. I figured it all out. I learned that going past the middle floors to the lower floors and intentionally causing a ton of damage would make the creature spawn on that very floor. And the critical fact is that the dungeon perceives the 25th to 27th floor as a singular floor, making it the perfect spot to spawn this thing. Cheer up, Leon. You have the honor of seeing the fruits of my research as I announce them to the world. Bell demands that he tells them why. Like, why would you want to spawn a monstrosity for a second time? And Jura just says, because I want to tame it. And Jura starts explaining that, tell me, Leon, when you first saw it, did you think it was a monstrosity? Because I didn't. I might have been shitting and pissing myself at the time, but I was captivated by its beauty, mesmerized by it. I fell in love with it. Its beauty completely overshadows any goddess out there. And he reveals that with this magic item he has, he should be able to tame this thing no problem. And it's here we see just how crazy Jura has become in this situation. He's so overcome with his need for revenge. And it's here we transition to Team Hestia as they overhear the faint cry of dying adventurers in the background. And Lily can't take it anymore. She wants to immediately head out there because she's worried about Belle. And Cassandra stops her in this instance, saying how I knew this disaster was looming, but I couldn't do anything. And because you guys are alive right now, I'm sure that on the 27th floor, other people are dying now because of that. And she feels incredibly sorry about that. Now, this whole episode, we've had little scenes where we've cut away to Mara, where she is just terrified of this situation. But throughout it all, she's thinking of Belle, and she decides that I want to be with him. I want to go help him. And she goes off to go find him in this situation. And now I just can't help but think to myself, Mara's going to die, isn't she? She's going to end up dying, and that's going to be tough. And it's here we transition back to Oranos as he explains that this is a taboo of the dungeon that should never have existed. Making an official regulation is difficult, because in the process, doing so would make everyone aware that this thing exists in the first place. He reveals that they had to cover up the last situation where this thing spawned so that the public was never made aware of it. And because of that, the guild doesn't even have any information about this creature. But there is one group of people that do know what's happening right now, and it's the Xenos, because 5 years ago, they were in the dungeon, and they were more scared than anyone else. So Oranos actually told them about the situation, and they've been helping him to try to prevent a situation like this from ever happening again. But now, because of an awful turn of events, they're actually helping us seize complete control over Kononos, and they are indisposed. They can't come to this situation, meaning Oranos doesn't have anyone he can send to help. And it's here that he learns that the people that are down there that are getting confronted by this are actually the Hestia Familia. And it's here as we transition back to Bell and everyone. Bell hears the screams of adventurers, and he tries to run off immediately, but Ryu stops him, saying, "You can't go. There's no point in fighting this thing. You cannot beat it." And Juri just starts laughing at her, saying, "Of course you wouldn't let him go. You have first-hand experience fighting this thing. You know just how terrifying it is, probably more than I do. You were so desperate in your last battle against that thing that you let all your precious little friends die without even trying to help them. Oh, my mistake. You actually just outright slaughtered all of them with your own hands." as Ryu just absolutely loses control in this situation. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why would you not just kill Jura at this point? Why is he still alive and talking right now? I don't get it. I would have killed him a long time ago. Belle is horrified to see Ryu in this situation, to see how much emotion she's showing right now. He's terrified. And it's here that we hear Borz's group running into that room in terror as this thing is just mowing down everyone. Just bodies flying everywhere, cut in half, people getting mutilated, as we finally get a first good look at this thing up close, as it has an adventure in their mouth as it bites them in half. As we learn that this thing's name is the Juggernaut, a destroyer that massacres any and all adventurers it finds. Oranos even says that no matter what we do in this situation, we're going to be too late. That thing will keep going until it's killed everyone who's in the area. It will not stop until then. As it just absolutely massacres Orz's group. Just eviscerates them. And it's here that Belle jumps in the fray to try to save everyone, to try to fight this thing. And even Ryu doesn't do that. She's just there shaking, terrified of this thing. Belle deduces that this thing doesn't have much armor. It's a creature built for speed and offense, so I should be able to handle it as he charges in at the creature. But Belle can't land a single hit against this thing. Despite how big it is, it's so fast. He even comments that it's faster than the Iguazu from earlier in our season that are supposedly the fastest creatures in this area. And he comments that this thing is as strong as a floor boss, if not stronger. He tries to use magic in this situation on this thing as Ryu screams at him not to. And as he hits the creature, his attack bounces back and hits him, and it's revealed that the creature has a barrier around it that supposedly reflects all magic back at the caster. And it's here that the creature lunges at Belle and actually cuts his arm off as he's screaming in agony. And it's here that the creature swipes Belle away with its tail like he's nothing. And it looks like it snaps his neck in this situation, as he's just laying on the ground with his eyes hollow and lifeless. Arm cut off, completely defeated, as our episode ends with Ryu not screaming Mr. Cornell, but screaming out Belle's name. And this episode was insane. I can't believe that this got so violent and that this was so intense. I never would have thought it would come from this show whatsoever. Like, I even said in my other reviews that this show can definitely get violent and get aggressive, but this was on a whole nother level. I was stunned by how, like, freaking intense this was. Holy shit. I have no clue how they're going to get out of this situation, to be honest with you guys. I have no clue. And we have, like, 12 episodes after this. What the hell is going to happen? I have no clue, but I'm really excited to find out. So you guys let me know what you think down below in the comments, because I am extremely curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. But that'll be it for today, guys. This episode was insane. I never thought this show would have it in it, to be honest. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces, have a blessed day, and don't end up in a situation like this. You don't want to be in one. Trust me, but I'll see you guys next time.